During the mid-2000s, the Sonic franchise was in a crisis. After years of rushing out games with questionable concepts and worsening quality, players were upset. Their favorite series that used to rival Mario had devolved into a total laughingstock.
This is borderline experimental.
The game still sold well, but the franchise's reputation was permanently damaged. If they wanted to save the series, Sega desperately needed to clean things up. So they decided to change gears. What originally started out as the third Sonic Adventure game quickly developed into something else entirely. It became a brand new direction for the franchise that has stuck around for the last 18 years. I'm talking about Sonic Unleashed, the game that began the third and current era of Sonic, the modern era, even though it began in 2008. Hey, Sega's the one who called it Modern Sonic, don't blame me. I'm really excited to talk about these games because I played most of them when they released and have a lot of memories with them. It's far from perfect, but this era is some of my favorite Sonic experiences ever. There's a lot of ground to cover, so I think now's a good time to get started. Welcome to the Modern Sonic Retrospective. Before we begin, I want to remind you to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It would really help me out. Thanks. Sonic Unleashed and I have a complicated relationship. You know how I just said I played most of these games when they were released? Well, this one is the exception. I remember watching it on YouTube and trying a little of it at a friend's house when I was a kid, but it never grabbed me, and I always heard mixed things about it back then. To be honest, I always assumed most of the games sucked, and not even in a funny way like Sonic 06, in a boring way, which is much worse. When I was in high school, I did play a mod of Sonic Generations that recreated most of the good stages from the game, and I really enjoyed that. However, I avoided the real thing for most of my life. The first time I really played the game was just last year when it was decompiled for PC, which is absolutely insane, by the way. Like, playing an Xbox 360 game natively on your computer was literally not possible before the fans created this project. God, the Sonic fan community is incredible. So, once I finally played the game, was it as bad as I thought? The answer is a resounding no. This game is a blast to play through, and I want to talk about how it defied all my expectations and made me love it so much. The story begins in space, with Sonic landing on Eggman's fleet. In a thrilling action scene, he fights his way through the army until he's captured. Sonic goes super to break free, and he manages to chase Eggman down. Eggman then pretends to surrender, but this was a ruse, because he is able to trap Super Sonic. He drains the energy of the Chaos Emeralds out of Sonic, and uses its power to fire a laser at the planet, causing it to split open. Eggman does this to try and wake up a creature in the earth named Dark Gaia, whose power he hopes to possess for himself. Where have I seen this before? I'm sure this isn't going to backfire on him at all. Eggman's actions cause Dark Gaia to break apart and spread his essence across the globe. It also transforms Sonic into a new form called the Werehog, and it neutralizes the Chaos Emeralds too. Eggman then ejects them down to the planet. When Sonic returns to Earth, he meets a new character who he names Chip because this guy is obsessed with ice cream.
Oh, I love it!
Chip's issue is he has no memory of his past after Sonic fell on him. Sonic actually breaks the fourth wall when he learns about this, which I believe is the first time a main series game has done this during the story. Sonic offers to help Chip get his memory back, so he tags along for the adventure. They discover that when the sun rises, Sonic goes back to his normal form. However, the opposite happens when it gets dark out, and that's unfortunate, because Sonic is a little upset about being the Werehog. He hopes to stop Eggman from reuniting Dark Gaia and reverse his own transformation. Sonic and Chip meet up with Tails and Amy, and encounter some new characters, such as this guy named Professor Pickle, who has no eyes. Pickle explains that Dark Gaia is an immortal creature who thousands of years ago split the planet himself. In order to put it back together, Sonic needs to find these temples that will restore the Chaos Emeralds and heal the Earth. They need to do this before Dark Gaia is fully reborn. So Sonic and Chip travel around the world to search for the temples while fighting Eggman and Dark Gaia's minions along the way. And that's the basic premise. It's much simpler than the previous games, and I enjoy that. There are a lot less characters, and the focus is almost exclusively on Sonic, Chip, and Eggman. And they all got some good moments here. Mainly Chip. I was surprised how much I liked him and his humor.
And if I was that hungry, I don't know how long I would last. I'd rather be dead.
Like SA2, this game has some decent jokes. They even give Eggman a sidekick called Orbot, who constantly makes fun of him.
Your skill at self-aggrandizement is unparalleled.
I would say Unleashed has one of the best narratives in the series. It strikes a good balance between drama and comedy, makes sense, and is fun to watch. It would have been cool if more characters from the previous games were here, but Amy and Tails are fine. Remember, this game came after Sonic 06, where everyone agreed there were too many characters, so they were addressing that here. Unleashed is the first game that uses everyone's current models. Yeah, you heard that right. Sega hasn't updated these designs for almost 20 years. I'll have more to say on this in the future, but I will mention that in this game, I really like how everyone looks, especially Sonic. What blew me away when I was watching the cutscenes was how gorgeous they are. They do not look like they were made in 2008 at all. They're incredible. The same goes for the levels, which are breathtaking to look at. The devs really went all out for Unleashed, using a much more realistic lighting engine that pushed the Xbox 360 and PS3 to their absolute limits. However, this resulted in those versions having some pretty bad frame rates. That's why I'm using the PC decomp for this video. I know it's not official, but this is so much better to look at that I feel obligated to use this version. Besides, you can already increase the frame rate on an Xbox Series X, so this is basically the same thing, except better. The decomp has some other quality of life options added to it, although I didn't use any of those to try and replicate the original experience. I think now's a good time to mention that this game was also on the Wii and PS2, and those versions are pretty different than the HD releases. I consider them their own thing that deserve to be covered in a separate video in the future. In Unleashed, Sonic is the only playable character, and this becomes a pattern going forward in the series. His gameplay consists of two different styles, the day stages where you play as regular Sonic, and the night levels where you use the Werehog. Let's focus on the day stages for now. These changed the core gameplay that lasted from SA1 all the way to 06. They did this by introducing the boost into the 3D games. This is an ability that originated from Sonic Rush on the DS. It lets Sonic run much faster than ever before while hurting enemies who are in his way. It operates on a meter that you refill by collecting rings. And if you use it near rings, it can actually attract them towards you, similar to the electric shield. The boost essentially replaces the spin dash, although it's more powerful than that move since you use it all the time. Sonic has some other new moves as well, such as the drift he can use to swerve himself in these open 3D areas, or the quick step, that immediately shifts him to the left or right and helps him dodge enemies while boosting. As you progress through the game, you can find upgrades that unlock even more abilities. There's the returning lightspeed dash, a wall jump, and my personal favorite, the stomp, which immediately halts your momentum in the air and quickly sends you downwards, so you can get back to boosting. Sonic can once again rail grind, and it thankfully works well. He can hop between rails with the shoulder buttons, and it feels pretty natural. New to the stages are these frequent 2D sections to shake things up, and brief parts where you skydive. There are also some areas where you do standard 3D platforming, which I enjoy, even though they don't feel as precise as they used to. The goal of the levels is to use the boost as much as possible to quickly reach the end. This is easier said than done, because there are a ton of obstacles in your way. You're constantly jumping or quick-stepping to keep yourself safe. As a result, boosting is never boring. It is a spectacle where Sonic is moving fast just by holding down the X button, but what makes it fun are the other actions you're doing besides that to maintain your speed. Some people criticize the modern Sonic games for being boost to win, and that is certainly true at times. However, it is absolutely not the case in Unleashed. There's actually a lot of parts where you don't want to boost, because it can get you killed, especially if you're not very familiar with the level design. I really love the stages in this game. They're exciting to play through due to their fast pacing and variety. They're pretty challenging too, particularly if you're going for the highest rank. I forgot to talk about this in the 06 video, but beginning with that game, the max ranking in the series is now the S rank. Getting those in the day stages is tough, and it's mainly due to one factor, the ring bonus. In the past games, your score increased every time you collected a ring. This means if you took damage, but were playing well, you would still get the A rank. However, in Unleashed, you need to finish the level for your rings to get added to the score. So now you can't afford to die or take much damage. All it takes is one hit at the end to rob you of the S rank. It's brutal, especially because these stages are more trial and error than before. There are some obstacles you just can't avoid your first time due to how fast the gameplay is. I can understand how this isn't some people's cup of tea. It can definitely be frustrating at times. But I love the difficulty. Getting S ranks is incredibly satisfying in these levels because they all make you work for it. Like in Arid Sands, where I needed to play nearly perfectly, grab every ring I saw, and reach the shortcuts for the S. My personal favorite stage is Jungle Joyride because it's really fun to blast through while still being tough as nails. Every single section can force a restart. It took me a long time, but when I saw that result screen, I felt like a Sonic expert. All these factors are why I'm prepared to call these the best 3D Sonic levels ever. They're more open-ended than the SA2 stages, have better replay value with the S ranks, and they're just so exciting. Look at these dynamic camera angles. How could you not want to play this game? I wish I felt the same way about the Werehog's gameplay. His levels are inspired by hack-and-slash games that were popular in the 2000s, mainly the original God of War trilogy. This means the pacing is much slower, and the focus is on fighting enemies with big health bars. Similar to other games in this genre, you can perform combos for more damage. And when you defeat enemies, they give you experience points you can use to level up either Sonic or the Werehog at the end of the level. But the Werehog is where most of your points should go to, since you can increase his strength, health, and even unlock more combos for him. Sadly, this gameplay is a lot more shallow under the surface. For most of my playthrough, I just mashed the Y button, and I kept beating the enemies. Somehow pressing the same move 10 times in a row is still a combo. The Werehog can do some other things in combat, like picking up mooks to throw at each other, or shielding projectiles. And he can build up the unleash meter that makes his attack stronger when you activate it. But other than that, there's not much here. The combat feels like a mindless button masher, where all the waves of enemies are basically the same thing. That's not good, because fighting is what you spend 80% of these stages doing. At least the other 20% is better. For some strange reason, the Werehog can stretch his arms really far. This enables him to grab onto objects in these platforming sections. While here, he also has to balance himself on these planks and jump off enemies to progress. Aside from that, these levels have some basic puzzle solving that's like the least interesting room in every Zelda game. If you explore the surrounding area, you'll find places where Sun and Moon medals are hidden. These are collectibles you can find all over the game. They're in the day stages, hub worlds, even the boss fights. You need to collect these to enter the stages. I guess Sonic Team got annoyed that people roasted the useless silver medals in 06. It's pretty hard to find all the medals in the day stages because of how fast paced they are. So you'll mainly look for these as the Werehog, and I actually enjoy this mechanic. I know some people hate it, but I think it's fun collecting them. It's certainly better than the combat. The requirements are kinda steep, but I've played this game twice, and both times Jungle Joyride Day was the only level where I needed to backtrack for more medals. There are some other collectibles hidden in the stages too, such as music you can listen to in Professor Pickle's lab. Oh man, I cannot believe I've talked about the Werehog this long and haven't mentioned the battle theme. Every time you encounter enemies, the ambient score is interrupted for this one stupid track. It's a good song, but you hear it so much throughout the game that it gets annoying after a while. In the PC decomp, you can thankfully turn this off, but I didn't let myself do that because it wasn't an option in the original release. What really confuses me is when you fight enemies in the hub road and the last level, the song doesn't play. Why are these the only exceptions? It's a shame this never got patched because the score in Unleashed is great. Tracks like Dragon Road and Rooftop Run are a joy to listen to. This is the part where I would say my favorite Werehog song, but I can't remember them because of the stupid battle theme. Ugh. Another issue I have with the Werehog is he feels slow and unsatisfying to play as compared to other hack and slash games. There's a lot of lag after his moves, making the combat much slower than it should be. And when you land hits on the enemies, the visuals and sound effects don't feel right. They lack impact. And I gotta say, the Werehog doesn't feel like I'm playing as Sonic. He's not fast on the ground, I don't understand his stretchy powers, he's a little too thick, and the two have almost nothing in common gameplay-wise. I complained about Tails' mech in Adventure 2, but even that made more sense, since he was in an upgraded Tornado. I don't dislike the Werehog, but I find his gameplay really uninteresting. I don't even have much to say about his individual levels. They all blend in together, because most of the time you're fighting nearly identical waves of enemies. I noticed in Rooftop Run, there's a clock tower you're climbing that kills you if you fall down to a previous area by immediately despawning it. What is this? The NES Castlevania games? That's something, I guess. I think the Werehog exists for the same reason they gave Shadow an AK-47. They just wanted to rip off more popular games, and the result feels out of place with the Sonic series. Although I did have some fun in these stages at least. Earlier I mentioned the hub worlds. You access these in a world map screen where you can choose to visit them as Sonic or the Werehog. There are NPCs to talk to, and some of them have missions to do. These locations also contain the upgrades for Sonic, the stages, and some additional acts you can play for fun or to earn more medals. I said in my SA1 review that I prefer these games not to have hub worlds, but I think I've changed my mind on the topic. In all the games so far, I've enjoyed these places, and Unleashed is no exception. I like how contained they are this time. And there's actually a purpose to exploring them, since you need the medals. The hub worlds and levels are all in different places that are inspired by real-world countries, like Apatos is Greece, Chang'an is China, and Empire City is America. That's pretty neat. To reach each temple, you need to clear a boss fight as either Sonic or the Werehog. These are fine, although it's annoying how the Werehog ones rely on QuickTime events. Actually, the whole game is obsessed with QTEs. I think they're fine in the day stages, but they irritate me in other areas, like having to mash the A button to get up as the Werehog. I know these were popular at the time, but they have not aged well. The worst example of this is in the Tornado levels with Tails, where the only thing you're doing are QTEs. I've never cared for these stages, but at least in the past games, you were actually controlling the plane. This is not fun. You know what else isn't great? the pacing. When I was playing Unleashed, I was having an amazing time for the first couple hours. Playing day stages, exploring hub worlds, finding medals, it was a great time. I couldn't stop myself from playing it. But in the second half of my playthrough, the game started to get on my nerves. I don't know why they did this, but you constantly need to return to Professor Pickle's lab to unlock stages, even when you already have enough medals. Maybe they wanted you to spend more time in the hub worlds or something, but this is just padding. Towards the end of the game, you need to play 2 night stages back to back, followed by a boss fight with the Werehog, and it's exhausting. Especially because his levels are pretty lengthy. On average, they took me 21 minutes to beat, which is way too much for gameplay this dull and repetitive. It's tolerable most of the time, since you're usually swapping between the 2 gameplay types, but in this case, I was playing a full hour of the Werehog, and that's lame. Because of the stage length, if you're just trying to beat the game, you spend a lot more time playing as this guy compared to Sonic. Yep, it's the same issue as SA2. I can definitely see how this was supposed to be an adventure game. I guess it's an honorary one, since the Japanese title is Sonic World Adventure. It's funny how Sonic is the only playable character in this game, yet we still have the same problem as before. However, like Adventure 2, I adore the day stages so much that I'm willing to overlook my issues with the Werehog. When Sonic and Chip reach the 6th temple, Chip regains his memory. He learns that he is actually Light Gaia, and it's his duty to protect the planet from Dark Gaia. He also explains that being awakened early by Eggman is what causes amnesia. He offers to save the world by himself, but Sonic isn't having that. He wants to help out. The 2 friends head to Eggman Land for the final stage and temple. Yeah, Eggman finally got around to building this a decade later. I guess he got bored of holding the planet hostage or using the Chaotix for unpaid labor. Eggman Land is an extremely long and difficult level. You play as both Sonic and the Werehog, swapping between the 2 when you reach these hourglasses. There's a lot of places that can kill you here due to tight platforming or trial and error. Even though you use both gameplay styles, the bulk of the level is spent on the Werehog. As you can expect, it's not very enjoyable. It took me 40 minutes to beat, which is absurd. And then you play as the Werehog for the last time in a tedious battle against Eggman, where the main way you damage him is with QTEs. But this isn't the final boss. The reborn Dark Gaia is. He removes the Werehog from Sonic and attempts to kill him, only to be stopped by Chip. Chip draws the temples towards him and becomes the Gaia Colossus. You play as this in Sonic to fight Dark Gaia. The Colossus boosts towards the boss and can punch or guard against his attacks. When you finally reach Dark Gaia, you fight him by doing another series of QuickTime events. Seriously, this is so lame. Sonic sections involve him racing towards Dark Gaia before the timer hits 0, and as you can expect, they conclude with more QTEs. For the last phase, you use Super Sonic and fight these snakes, while Chip takes on Dark Gaia in the background. It's kinda weird, but it's not too difficult. At the very end, Super Sonic needs to rescue Chip by doing more QuickTime events, including this one where you need to press X 60 times in a row. I'm sorry, but I do not care for this finale. It's way too drawn out with Eggman Land and multiple boring boss battles. Dark Gaia is defeated and the world starts to heal. The last piece of the planet is being put together, so Chip saves Sonic and goes back into hibernation. The game comes full circle, with Sonic waking up in the same place he met Chip, except he's no longer there. Only his bracelet remains, which Sonic keeps to remember his friend. Sonic runs off with Tails following him in the tornado as the game's theme Endless Possibilities plays. It's a great conclusion to the plot. I know I spent a lot of this video complaining, but I need to emphasize that I really do love Unleashed. This game just has a lot of flaws, mainly because the Werehog was not executed well. However, the day stages more than make up for this. They're so addicting to blast through and S-rank. And there's a ton of content here. I didn't mention this before, but this game has DLC levels that give you other acts to play, including hard mode versions of the main stages. These are easily the most difficult S-ranks I've earned in a Sonic game. All the trial and error is taken to an 11 here. They're super brutal, but it feels really rewarding to conquer these levels. This means that in Unleashed, you can spend hours and hours only playing the day stages. I've revisited this game a lot in the last year because it's so fun to learn and then blast through one of these levels to beat my own times or to see the shiny S symbol at the end. Sonic Team struck gold here, and I can see why this gameplay is stuck around. Of course, not everyone feels this way. I can understand why this game was divisive at the time. IGN even gave it a lower score than Sonic 06, which is still hilarious to this day. Like, how is that even possible? But in the many years since 2008, people have been giving this game more credit because of the incredible Sonic gameplay. Some people even praise the night stages, which I don't get, but I'm happy they enjoy it. I think most fans today really appreciate this game, and I'm proud to say that I'm finally one of them. Unleashed really surprised me. I was incredibly skeptical of it going in because I thought the Warhog would ruin the experience. But its charming story, amazing presentation, and fantastic day stages completely won me over. It's a masterpiece. A heavily flawed one, but still a work of art that's one of the greatest the Hedgehog has to offer. It's very close between this and SA2, but I think it's earned the crown of being my favorite 3D Sonic game. Thanks for watching.